All right, ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to the only coast-to-coast show all about the information economy. It's time for Inside Analysis. Yours truly, Eric Kavanagh, is here with the man, the legend, Steve Lucas, the bringer of light to IT, into systems, CEO of Boomi. Very interesting company. We've been tracking Boomi for about 15 years or so. Steve took over, what, about 3 years ago? 3.5 years ago?
Almost four now.
Almost 4 years ago. And they're a juggernaut, folks. So here at the HumanX Conference, all about AI, of course. AI is everywhere. Everybody's got the AI. All the executives want to buy the AI, but which AI? What's it going to do? How does it work? And you know what? 3 years ago, you and I met in a hallway at one of your events, and the LLMs had just come out. And I said, everyone's excited about the LLMs and this great new natural language processing. It's cool stuff. But I said, what I'm more interested in was what I call the interactive AI, which is now, of course, called agentic AI, right? And you were on it right away. You went right toward the AI control tower. I'm like, that's going to be the rub, is how do you govern? How do you orchestrate these things? How do you deal with race conditions? How do you make sure they do what they're supposed to do? Tell us about the Boomi control tower.
Well, first of all, that was a great segue. And it's always a pleasure to chat with you about this stuff. Look, I think one thing I'll say before I say AI, because we're going to say AI a lot, you and I here when we're talking, is I always ask people before you start running down the AI path and how am I going to use it in my business? And what about AI agents, which are, just these self-directed, kind of planetoids around the AI, kind of sun.
Interesting.
The way I think about it, I ask one question of every business executive, business leader, and that is, okay, forget AI. How do you feel about your business data today? Can you go into work or on your phone or your laptop or wherever and get the data that you need to run your business effectively today? Can you do that?
Right.
99 times out of 100, the answer is no.
Right.
It's, well, the data is either too slow or it's inaccurate.
Right.
And my God, we've been at this a long time, right? I mean, you and I have been orbiting around business intelligence.
Right.
And when was the last time you heard anybody say business intelligence, right?
For a while.
Like we've shoved it to the side and we're now on artificial intelligence. My thing is like, well, if you can't get business intelligence right, which is getting data to humans, and we work way slower than AI ever did.
That's right.
How are you going to do that with agents that work at 10,000x the speed of a human? How's that going to work?
Right.
So, in answer to your question, our control tower, we call it a few different things, the AI agent control tower. It is the most consequential technology that your business needs today. You think it's AI, but it's not AI. It's how do I govern AI? How do I watch it? How do I manage it? How do I make sure it's doing the right things? We humans still have to be in charge. We are, and I'm going to punt this back to you because I think we're at an inflection point here. Would you agree with me that today, on average, AI is influencing safely 30 to 40% of business decisions in larger companies? Influencing, carefully chosen word. I believe that in the next 24 months, AI is going to make 90% of the business decisions.
Yeah. I think you might be right. And, I had this epiphany myself a while ago, just thinking about what's going to happen in the future is the AI is going to make lots of suggestions, and even CEOs are going to need to either validate or go against the suggestion. And it's okay if you go against, but if things go south, it's not going to be so good.
I just think, though, if you think about the number of decisions that even a CEO makes on a daily basis, right? And there's good CEOs, there's not so good CEOs. But there's too many decisions that CEOs or chief whatevers make that really aren't requisite for the job. They're really not.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So it kind of comes down to, I think, as an AI, like the version of Claude or OpenAI that I work with, as it becomes better and better at being me, it's going to make more and more of those decisions.
It is. And it's like we have to be careful about the AI governance and the data governance. I mean, I think you made an excellent point about the importance of the data being accessible. You guys are also talking about data activation as a new messaging, which I think makes a lot of sense, because if you can't get to the right data at the right time, if you can't make the decision that you need to make at the right time with your business data, you're going to have some problems. So I think the key is, as you suggest, we need to understand what we're trying to do with this stuff. We need to log all these activities. We need to track it. We need to manage it. Now, the thing is, for now, AI is just going to make suggestions. But as you're suggesting to me, it's going to start taking decisions.
Oh,
and you have to watch for that and manage for that, right?
that's it. And I like for everybody within earshot of this conversation today, I'm going to give you like 3 simple things that you can think about that will help you understand whether or not your business is ready for AI.
Right.
Number 1 question to ask is my business connected?
Yeah.
And I mean, every system can talk to every system. I'm just talking like if you've got like Salesforce.com, which the average listener should have Salesforce.com,
Right.
but some, it's Salesforce. They don't call themselves Salesforce.com. I'm dating myself. Salesforce. So you got Salesforce. And you've got Salesforce, and then maybe you have an HR system like Workday. It's pretty straightforward. Can those 2 systems connect and talk to each other when they need to, right?
Right.
So is my business connected? Now, the average business today has over 365 different applications, according to Gartner.
Right.
So now, if all those systems need to talk to all those systems, that's a crazy amount of connection. But build your connected business. That's step 1.
Right.
Then step 2 is your business automated? Forget AI.
Right.
Is it even automated,
Right.
right? There's so much really terrific automation technology out there. The vast majority of companies, they're barely connected,
Right.
let alone automated.
Right.
And then we get to the last one, which is now, is your business agentified? Is it agentic, right?
Right.
So is it connected? Is it automated? And is it agentic? But the problem is most companies are so caught up in the AI hype, they start with, well, let's make it agentic on
Right.
unautomated bad data.
That's right. That's right. Not a good idea.
No, it's
Well,
a terrible idea.
And automation is hard. Automation is hard primarily because of the edge cases. You can think of all the different places you could automate something. Perfect example of what annoys me these days is the AI automation they baked into Gmail on the Mac. It's finishing sentences for me that I don't want finished.
Right.
And it throws off my typing. As it throws another word, I'm like, so another, like, no, I just back off.
Yeah.
Stop, turn that thing off.
It's almost like your brain can't even complete your thought.
Right. Right. And it's like it's disruptive. So there are places where we have, well, like the guy said yesterday from OneTrust, very clever guy. They have a very good strategy about getting people into this agentic world. They said risk appetite. What is your risk appetite? What is your risk portfolio? What are you willing to risk in order to get to this next level? And I'm like, this is good.
Yeah.
For years, I worked for the Global Association of Risk Professionals, or as I call them, the de facto Illuminati, because these are like chief risk officers for central banks all around the world. And
GARPs.
yeah, GARPs. It's the world according to GARP, like, quite literally.
Yeah,
They certify the financial risk manager exam. That's where I got an appreciation for risk appetites.
Right.
And what he says is, look, if you can do something with a deterministic system, don't involve AI.
Why would you do that,
Just
right?
slow down.
Well, here's a question for everybody that's listening. Do you want AI, which is a prediction engine?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Do you want AI running your payroll on Fridays?
Right. No.
Well, no, right? I mean,
Right.
literally it takes 1 line of code, no joke. It's if Friday run payroll,
Right.
else don't. I don't need a GPU. I
Right.
don't need an agent.
That's right.
And those decisions are getting made somewhat poorly by the millions every day now. It's like, well, let's apply AI to this. We
Right.
don't need to do that.
Right. That's right. And it's dangerous. You might appreciate this. I had this realization a couple of years ago now that, in the data world, we have spent the last half century really perfecting information systems. It starts at the database. We built applications on top of that. You have networking, you have security, you have all these different pieces that come together to form your IT stack. But we made databases faster, more concurrent users, more data types, all kinds of things. But there was one thing never in question. You would always get out of the database what you put into the database. And now with large language models, you get a probabilistic system. So it's almost like putting a noise filter on the end of this pristine 50-year process. It's like, well, why would you do that?
Well, let's get philosophical for a
I like
minute.
that.
Let's get philosophical. Here we go. So before computers and AI and all the things, we had humans.
Right.
And for the entirety of human evolution, what humans do is we infer, we guess,
Right.
we even lie. That's what humans do, right? These are the things that we do. We invented those things.
Right.
And humans are largely emotional, irrational actors.
Right.
That's who we are. So
Right.
then
So
when
it makes it fun.
yeah, but then modernization comes along, computers come along. So what did we invent? Well, we invented these logic-based systems, what you're talking about, ERP, CRM, or sales automation. We invented these things
Right.
to keep the rules.
Right.
We created referees.
Right. That's right.
And the referees, we can ask for objective truth. What were my sales last month? Now, if you ask a human, especially a sales rep, they'd be like, it was amazing. It was amazing.
Right.
And you kind of look at the data and you go, well, it doesn't look amazing, right? So we created referees because humans are rational actors. Well, that's human intelligence. What did we train artificial intelligence on? Did we train it on objective data
Right.
or human irrationality?
Right.
Well, we trained it on humans.
Right.
Our language, our inference, our hopes, our passions, but our lies.
Right.
We call it hallucination.
Right.
The whole point is you need these logic, what I call logic gates, the systems that we invented to keep the rules. The worst thing we could do is put the referee inside the player.
Right. Right. Because the referee has to be outside governing the game. And that gets into governance, that gets into control planes, that gets into guardrails. And
you got it.
So I interviewed the CEO of Rackspace a couple of weeks ago, and he had a really interesting point. He said, as we move into this agentic era, the guardrails go deeper in the infrastructure. Right now, you got the guardrails mostly sometimes in the database, sometimes at the application layer. You have a business rule management system, for example, that can be pretty complex. But now you have to get deep in the infrastructure because these agents are doing so much. Like you said, 10,000 decisions in a minute. Like how do you control that? How do you manage that? And the answer is very carefully.
Very carefully.
Right?
But every company, this is why we built our Boomi agent control tower. It's a technology that irrespective of what AI systems you're using, and the scary part is almost if you're using software at your company, by default, you're going to be using AI going forward.
Right.
All of those software products will have AI. In fact, find me a software company that isn't saying AI, right? So by default, you've let AI into your organization.
Right.
So what our control tower does is literally register, track, observe, govern, manage automatically all of that AI. So it could literally drop you a note and say, hey, seems to be this AI agent that you may or may not be aware of,
right,
that is doing something that doesn't make sense on your network,
right,
or is accessing a system or a database that it shouldn't be.
right, right.
You must have this. It is I get AI is the most consequential technology out there.
Right.
It is, but the most consequential decision you can make is get this control tower in place.
Yeah, you need some way to govern at scale. And that's the thing. You can't rely on humans
Not
to
anymore.
be looking at log files all day to figure out what's going on. I mean, it's kind of funny because we've got this capability almost just in time, in a sense, because now you can use LLMs to scan through massive amounts of log files and say, what's in there that's interesting? Look at this, and that. It won't always get it, but it'll get a lot of stuff.
Well, it's interesting. So this actually happened to my son last week. So he last week had someone stole his credit card.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's fun.
And they bought an Apple Watch at Best Buy or something online. And he got a notification of the purchase, through his email.
Right.
But what was interesting, and the reason I knew it was an AI agent, was he got about 1,000 emails before and after that one email.
No kidding.
With thousands of distracting red herrings.
Wow.
So it was very sophisticated.
Wow.
Clearly not done by a human. And this is the kind of thing. So embedded in that 1,000 emails was the one relevant
Jeez.
fraudulent, purchase, but it had him going all over the place. And in the end, the natural thing was like cancel the credit card, obviously.
Right.
But everything was meant to distract the one fraud or fraudulent purchase.
That's dark. I mean, they are getting very good at this stuff. You know, I remember Chase Bank came out shortly after these LLMs and said, "Oh, we're allowing you to do voice activation on your bank account." I said, "No, thank you." There are millions of videos of me talking online. Someone can capture my voice.
That's not going to be hard.
Account. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. So you have to be careful. But that's a very deceptive practice. You're basically creating so much noise that you can't find the signal. And this is serious stuff. I mean, so one of my good buddies, you talked to him, Sammy Akbe, he set up OpenClaw on his machine and had it doing some interesting things. And before he knew it, it was going through his contacts in his phone, asking people for money to buy more tokens. And so he's like, "Whoa, turn that thing off!" Like,
well, that you brought up. So there is a huge difference, and you bring up a great point around OpenClaw. So whether it's any kind of, whether it's OpenClaw, NemoClaw, pick a claw,
right.
The reality is there's a massive difference between, let's say, an AI, like an agent that was built by like Boomi that does something useful.
Right.
Or you and I go create an agent that has a very limited scope.
Right.
Then there's this thing called OpenClaw, which is technically an AI agent, but it's a harness.
Right.
To control one or many agents. Now, the difference, and this is why this is scary stuff, is OpenClaw as a system will, if you give it a task like on your computer, it will not stop until that task is complete. So, for example, there was a researcher out there that was sharing this story online where he said, "Go make me a restaurant reservation." Fine, innocuous, right? So it goes to the website, checks for the registration, and the restaurant doesn't have a make it online.
Right.
So this agent goes and downloads a voice API, then calls the restaurant to make the reservation. You do not want OpenClaw or any open anything running around on your corporate network.
That's right.
That's crazy talk, and that's where we are right now.
That is crazy. Well, folks, don't touch that. We'll be right back. You're listening to Inside Analysis. All right, folks, back here at HumanX with Steve Lucas, CEO of Boomi. A guy knows a lot about agentic AI, but the business data matters the most. You keep hearing everyone talk about the importance of the data, the accessibility of the data. You know, what I said when all this started was, folks, it's time to get your data house in order. And I came up with an analogy, you might appreciate this, that the onslaught from large language models and all these AI models everywhere, this AI has been around for decades, but the LLMs really shook things up because they're so interesting and so powerful. Now everybody's focused on them. I kind of refer to it as a final exam halfway through the semester. And it's like, all right, let's go, people. Like, well, I thought I had more time. No, you don't have more time. You need to get on this.
Right.
But to your point, it's the data first. You want to walk, well, crawl, walk, run. You don't want to go running around with OpenClaw like a child with scissors running across your
or a chainsaw.
Or a chainsaw. It can cause real harm, and that's the thing. Don't give guns to robots, okay, and then they won't shoot you.
Right.
But the same holds true for information systems. And to your point earlier, we don't yet know the access patterns for these agents. We don't yet know what it's going to look like. And to your point again, they're going to try to solve some problem you tell them to. They're very diligent little interns with an encyclopedia behind them and no need for sleep.
Yeah.
Right?
The most important thing, so first of all, you're absolutely right about the data. And again, I will say this over and over again. If you, at your company, if you can't get humans quality data for the humans to make good decisions, if you're struggling with that, then the struggle to get AI quality data to make good decisions is going to be about 1,000 times more challenging. So the first thing I urge everyone to do is get a data activation platform like Boomi that can connect your data, automate it to get it to the right humans at the right time in real time, and then go for it, with AI. But that's number one. Then number two, with AI itself, I think the scariest word out there right now is agent. Because no one really knows what that means. There's not an industry, there's no definition for an AI agent, right? If I say agent, Well, that could mean something innocuous like, hey, what's the weather today? And then this AI just tells me the weather. That's pretty harmless as an agent goes. And then there's way over here in harmful land, these open claw agents, and open claw being an agentic harness with, may have many AI models and agents at its beck and call. And that's going to be a self-modifying, evolving agent. By the way, I remember a few years ago saying, and I've heard many AI experts say, self or recursively modifying AI might be a bad thing, right? And yet now we're just totally fine with having an agentic harness that will evolve to complete its task. So the point is this: agent, do not rest comfortably thinking that you or I or anyone understands that term. Nobody does. Thrown around pretty loosely.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and you've mentioned ERP and CRM. Here's what really excites me about the possibilities with AI agents and the large language models. Think about policy documents. Think about corporate governance and regulations and all these very, very complex topics, which were the guardrails, the formal guardrails. Well, LLMs can crunch through that stuff in no time. And so your human agents and now have these superpowers where you can ask any question if you've got all the documentation loaded into your data activation plane, essentially. And think about CRM. CRM was supposed to help us know who the customer is and make strategic decisions about that. Getting data out of Salesforce, not so easy.
No.
Not so easy to do. And so what happens? Once in a while, a human would log into Salesforce and they would manually go through and read things. Well, now, if your systems are connected, as you suggest, if they're governed, if you have this control plane, you can ask natural language questions about, well, tell me about the top 10 customers in the Southeast who are using this new product. Enter. And it's like, these are the companies using the products. Think about how that changes the game. Now everyone can be a strategist. Everyone can know so much about the business. It's just a question of taking the time to ask the questions and find out, right?
That's right. And intelligently routing those questions too. Not everything needs to be very expensive, Claude bound or OpenAI bound query. And the challenge is that if even at my company, you look at the vast majority, what we have Claude for everybody. We've got Claude Cowork, we have Claude Code. Every single employee, thousands and thousands and thousands of employees have Claude. Solidly 70% of those questions and queries that get bound for Claude are, what does my agenda look like today? How is that in any way useful and a good investment, when it comes to money right now? The high value queries are, well, let's use this to try and attack a connector and look for a flaw, look for some bug. That's useful. So what Boomi's building right now is the ability for any company to intelligently route questions and queries to the right model, or just a query engine in real time, which makes sense, right? Because otherwise we're going to be spending whatever you're spending with Claude or OpenAI today, you're going to be spending, I'm not joking, I think probably 100 times that amount in the next 3 or 4 years.
Well, it is expensive. The tokens are not free. It takes money. But when I think about this, so I'll throw this one at you. Because you've said it yourself, there's going to be so much software now. Like the barrier to entry is basically gone.
Yeah, everyone can write really bad software now.
That's true. That's true. You need a stack. You need to understand what you've had this thing do so you can troubleshoot it, so you can figure it out. But here's what I find so fascinating. For years, it has been the developers. First, it was the compute, then it was the developers were the barrier. And it took time, and you had to plan things, do requirements gathering, and then you had to work for weeks and weeks and do your sprints and like, okay, here's something else, not quite there. Now it's on the business. The business is the bottleneck. What do we want to change today? What new module do you want to build today? So now the business has to decide faster and faster. It's almost like they've been waiting for years and just going, taking coffee breaks and whatnot. It's like, no. Now you guys got to be on your game. You guys have to make decisions, and you guys have to be engaged with the developers, with Claude, right?
You are getting at something that I think the average business executive hasn't quite wrapped their head around yet. So now here's what I will say. I think everybody believes that, AI has changed everything forever. The game has changed all the things, right? But if you're a company today, and I think this is a safe statement, which is, AI probably influences 20% to 40% of the decisions that you or I make, or whoever's listening, on a day-to-day basis. Is that a safe statement?
Yeah, I think so.
Whatever, but it's 20%, 40%. But AI is influencing the average human being's decisions 20 to 40% of the time, influencing.
Right.
And when you and I talk, we talk about, well, how can AI get me more information in real time, which Boomi does a great job with, right? That's awesome. But 2 or 3 years from now, AI isn't going to be influencing 20 to 40% of your decisions.
Right.
It's going to be making 90% of your decisions. It will leave the 10%, the ones that really matter to you.
Right.
So here's the question is, if you're a company that's just like, hey, in the next couple of years, I'm going to be that AI influenced 20 to 40% of the time.
Right.
You are so far behind.
Right.
Because the companies that will win, your competitors, will be the ones where AI is making 90% of the decision. It doesn't mean that AI is running the company. The humans are running the company.
Right.
But what it means is that I think we humans overrate the decisions we make.
I think you're right about that. It's a bitter pill to swallow, I think, for some people.
Yeah.
But the reality on the ground is that these systems can know so much about your business. And so you have to use these systems. And, to your point, it's going to be a little strange, like letting go a little bit and letting these automatons go do their thing. It's going to be a bit off-putting, but you can do more. Like, that's the thing, is you can do more. And, one of the concerns, and we've talked about this before, is that, it's going to take jobs away. You're hearing all these stories about, they're laying off people because of AI. They're not laying off people because of AI. They're laying off people either because they overhired.
It's a convenient scapegoat.
It's a very convenient scapegoat. And so I warn people, just don't believe everything you read in the news about this stuff. The idea is you want to 10x your employees, and you want to empower people to do new, cool things. So we will need to adjust the workloads of people. That's true. But now anyone can learn anything about any part of the business as and when needed. So it's like, you want to talk about upskilling your team, you want to talk about empowering your team, you're doing it by giving them access to Claude. And I remember you said, all your employees, I want you using this stuff, at least play around with it so you understand how it operates, because you can save so much time on things. You know what it does really well? ETL. It does ETL really well. I just did a screen scrape from some conference and said, give me a clean list of all the companies on here and their Twitter handles. And it was like, banged it all out. Now, got some of the Twitter handles wrong. You can't blame it for that. Yeah. But it's still just, it would take a human days to do that.
Well, so coming here to this HumanX conference, I had the list of all the exhibitors.
Yeah, right.
There's, I don't know, like 1,000. It's not, hundreds and not 1,000, right? And all I did was just put it in Claude and I said, me, who should I meet with?
Yeah, right.
And I got my top 3.
That's amazing.
And that somebody on my team would have to do that. And look, that's soul crushing spreadsheet work anyway. No one wants to do that.
That's right.
That's punishment.
That's right.
So AI did it.
That's right.
That's great.
And this is where you can so incredibly improve what you do on the job. And here's my big theme: morale. It's great for morale because, like you said, that boring data engineering stuff is just no fun. It's no fun fixing pipelines. It's no fun just trying to slog through some giant spreadsheet. Your eyes go numb, your mind goes numb. So if you can use it to automate all of those tedious tasks, that's when you're on to the next thing and the next thing. And it's like, I'm a sales guy. You're in a sense a sales guy. You sell ideas. Salespeople thrive on morale. When you get a good call, you're like, yes. And you do another call, like, yes. And your morale goes up. Yep. You run into friction, because I asked myself, what kills morale? And the answer, there's several things. 1, tedious processes kill morale. 2, feeling like you're not being heard at business, raising a concern, not getting the support you need. That kills morale. And then there's that sort of silent killer when people just stop complaining, and that's because they're looking for another job.
That's right.
Yeah. Right. And so you got to watch for these leading indicators and let your people know you can use these tools to automate the tedious stuff and move on to the next thing and the next thing. Right.
That's right. We're in a place where Again, to maybe wax poetic for a moment,
Yeah,
I think often about COVID and how all of us weren't sure what the world was going to be like
right,
during, or post-COVID, right? We
right,
didn't know, first of all, we didn't know when
right,
post-COVID was. Would movie theaters exist
right,
anymore?
right.
Why was Zoom, the company, worth $1 trillion back then, right?
Unbelievable.
But it's because humans couldn't see past the change.
Right,
And now it feels remarkably normal, the world that we're in again.
right,
And we can't see past the change that AI is going to bring right now because we're in the middle of it.
right,
There will be a time where we look back and say, well, some of the things we were worried about, not that big of a deal.
right,
Some of the other things we probably didn't worry about enough.
right,
The world will fundamentally change
right,
again
right.
because of AI. Now, do I think that there will be, universal basic income and
Right.
all these things that, Sam Altman seems to write about? I don't know
Right.
about that, but what I do know is that the most important thing that a company, anyone listening right now can do is get your data
Mhm.
with quality in real time to both the humans
Right,
and the AI elements of your business. And that's what we're about is Boomi as a platform. We call ourselves the data activation company, is literally activating your data, getting it into the hands of humans and getting it into the API hands
Right.
of AI
Right.
so that you can move with speed. If you're that company that is just doing, 20 to 40% of decisions influenced,
Right.
and that's your plan for the next couple of years, you are so far behind.
Well, that's right. And you make an excellent point too, talking about activating your data. Most data in organizations was not used at all.
No,
It
data
went into a database. It just sat there and gathered dust and just didn't do anything. And you'd run reports and things, and even people wouldn't read the reports. But now, because of these large language models, you can absorb all this unstructured data. That's all the context. And I remind people that data warehousing happened because we realized you couldn't query an ERP very effectively. So we pulled all this data out, but we stripped out the context to get it through thin pipes to slow processors from expensive storage.
Right.
Now the processors are fast, you can scale out. The networks are fast, blazing fast. All those dynamics have changed, and that's why all this new stuff is possible. Really important stuff, folks. Don't touch that. I'll be right back. You're listening to Inside Analysis. All right, folks, back here on Inside Analysis. Fascinating conversation, as always, with Steve Lucas, CEO of Boomi. And you've been a CEO of several companies, 3X CEO.
Yep.
I met you when you were president of SAP Americas.
Right.
Right. And then you went to Marketo, and then you went to iSIMS, which is interesting because you covered the core business at SAP. Then you covered marketing at Marketo. Then you covered HR at iSIMS, which is pretty important stuff.
Yeah, people.
Like knowing people.
Yeah.
It's all about the people, folks. Make no mistake. All this agentic stuff, these are just tools for people to use. The agents are not in charge. The agents are not the ones running the business, to your point, but you want to be able to use them. So you had business, core business, marketing, iSIMS, and now, of course, at Boomi, this data activation plane. It is so imperative that organizations realize you can use all your data now. You couldn't use it all before. It was too hard. It was too hard to get out. It's too hard to, so you just went with gut instinct. No, don't do that anymore. Use your data.
Well, it's funny. I mean, you've heard the phrase, data is the new oil, right? Right. And to a certain degree, like if oil is a useful thing, and if data is the new oil, then why don't you use all of it to its fullest potential? I think data, especially for humans, data is sand.
Right.
There's a lot of it.
That's right.
And you can make use of sand. You can turn it into silicon and chips and all the things.
Right.
But the reality is that data, to be truly leveraged in the AI world, it has to be active. It has to be in motion.
Right.
It has to be accessible, available. Ask yourself this fundamental question. As a human today, can I walk into my company and just get access to the data that I need to do my job?
Right.
And if the answer is no, or maybe no part of the time, you are not ready for the world of AI. You're not ready because AI agents will work 1,000 times faster than you. And our data activation platform is literally turn it on, connect everything in your business, and then automate everything in your business.
Wow.
And then agentify everything in your business. So we literally have 3 focused pillars: the connected enterprise, the automated enterprise, and the agentic enterprise.
Right.
all of those pillars must exist, because what you're going to find 2 or 3 years from now is, well, some stuff doesn't need to be AI based.
Right.
And some stuff does.
Right.
So if everything is connected, and then you can build automated systems with
Right.
or without AI,
That's right.
then at your convenience, you can
Right.
determine what needs to be agentic in nature. And you can do
Wow.
all that with the Boomi data activation platform.
Well, so I met my developer friend last night, a super, super cool guy. He's worked in San Francisco for many years. He has a great expression that I'll never forget. You're going to love this. He said, busy is the enemy of creative.
Oh,
Right?
that's good.
If you're behind the eight ball all the time, you're not being creative. And developers need to be creative because there's always a way to build a better mousetrap. And so to your point, when you have all this activation, connected systems, when you have the automation in place, now you have time to think and to do what humans do very, very well. And I'm sorry, the LLMs are never going to surpass humans in terms of thinking capacity. I mean, they can crunch lots of numbers and give you lots of information back, but it's expensive. Have you heard this line that's like, how much energy does it take to run a human? It's like 12 volts or something. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's not a lot, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to all these data centers. It's like there's a certain sense of overkill here, guys. So when you have the time, when you've blocked and tackled, you've connected your systems, you're automating what can be automated, which is a lot. There's
Yeah.
so much that we haven't automated just because we haven't had time, because we've been too busy on other things.
The work of automation is nowhere near done,
Right.
with or without AI.
Right. Yeah, and automation is hard. We talked about this. The edge cases are hard. You have to really think through what are the edge cases, and then what do we do then? And you can use the AI to do that stuff too. So it's like this, we have this really, and here's another thing I'll throw at you. What we're looking at, you mentioned an inflection point. Almost all of human knowledge has now been absorbed by these models.
Oh, yeah.
Claude,
Oh, yeah.
OpenAI. I mean, almost everything is, and it's like I realized I'm like a prompt engineer, and you're a walking, talking large language model. And so that's what I do is I prompt people, I
Right.
get conversations going, and but you have to get the right questions. That's why I don't really like lawyers. I didn't want to go into
Right.
law because it's like lawyers are kind of like chief executives at big Fortune 500 companies. You have to ask the right question in the right way to get a useful answer. And I don't want that.
Right.
I want to ask open-ended questions and have honest people go, great question. Here's what we're doing. Here's how it works. That's what edifies people. And that's what excites people.
Yeah.
We want to excite people. So don't be afraid of the AI. It's a new tool. It's amazingly powerful, but engage with it with your trusted data, with your governance in place, with your control tower. You can do anything these days, right?
You can. You're absolutely right. So every AI model that's out there has been trained entirely on the full corpus of human knowledge. There's nothing left.
Right.
Publicly.
Right.
Now, privately,
right.
The average business organization that has a tremendous amount of IP that is not on the public internet has been shielded from AI.
Right.
So it hasn't learned that yet.
Right.
And I think you're going to see businesses, and frankly, this should be for any business listening here, to continue to shield that IP.
Wow.
Now, here's how you do that. The worst thing you could do is take your unique data or your unique IP and just Control C, Control V, and upload to Claude.
That's right.
The scary part is some of your employees are already doing that.
Right.
And look, I've done it too, where I look around the room and I'm like, I don't know, should I put this PowerPoint in here?
Right.
I guess I'm gonna, right?
Right.
And that's not a good idea.
Right.
So what we're focused on is giving organizations not just the ability to get data to humans or artificial intelligence in real time. That
Right.
we do, and we've
Right.
been doing that for decades. We're going to be announcing soon the ability to give organizations the ability to run a model in a secure fashion behind a firewall in their own private data center. Now you can do that today. People are going to be like, yeah, Steve, that's called OpenClaw.
Right.
Or I can just use OLLAMA and I can run a local engine. Sure.
Right.
But can you secure it?
Right.
Can you scale it?
Right.
Can you make sure that when employees are Control C, Control Ving their way to whatever,
Right.
that all of those get routed only to your sovereign model?
Right.
That's what we're going to be driving. Boomi going forward is going to be making it brain dead simple, but hyper secure and scalable to run these open weight models
Right.
in a secure fashion in your data center.
Right.
You never sacrifice your IP.
Right. Well, this
That's
is what I
the game.
So 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago, before I was going to Boomi World, I was thinking about this, and I used the term executive cockpits. And the idea was you have a small language model in your data center. It's in your controlled environment.
Completely
You
sovereign.
train it on your data, and so data sovereignty is another big issue these days, right? But to your point, it's behind your firewall. It's your IP. This is your magic. This is what made your company successful.
Yeah.
You don't want to bleed that out to all your competitors.
Well, that's the thing. So you either do what you just said, or anything that makes you unique is no longer you.
Right.
You just gave it to all your competitors.
Wow.
So the consequential decisions right now that every business leader needs to make are, well, obviously number one is, how do I track and manage this AI? That's the Boomi control tower for AI. How do I track and manage all AI in my business? Put that aside.
Right.
That's one thing. But the next most consequential decision, maybe it's the first, is how do I ensure that my IP that sets me apart as a business does not leave my doorstep?
Right.
And it is, you are bleeding out
Right
now, and that is not good. You need to stop hemorrhaging your data that makes you unique.
Right.
Get these models and run them in a secure platform behind your firewall. And you know what? If an open weight model is like 97% as good as Claude, I'm good with that.
That's right.
I'm really good with that.
That's right. Well, you still have to have the smell test. You know, the humans still need to be like, wait, are you sure? And ask again, or kind of shake it up a little bit.
Yeah.
You'll see when it's wrong. It's like, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. You still need the humans to be in the loop. Actually, we had a great webinar with my buddy Sarang Bapat. He talks about humans in the loop, humans on the loop, and humans out of the loop. And that's the crawl, walk, run.
Yeah.
Because humans on the loop, you're still touching it, you're still there monitoring it. And when you're really ready to go and just pull that string, that's automation, that's true full automation. And you have your agents governing that stuff. It's like a few extra tokens just to check, is that correct? Is that not correct? That's the future.
Indeed it is. Well, I love the, in the loop, on the loop. I think that we are underestimating as a society the level of import that we assign to our decisions. I think is overrated for the most part. It's underrated for some, right? So I think I wrote this book. It's called Digital Impact: The Human Element of AI Transformation. I published it a year ago, probably a little too soon. But it was anticipating that there's this world where humans matter most in this. But we humans are gonna have to define a new role for ourselves in this world.
Well, and that's the journey, folks. That's the journey we're on. We'll look this gentleman up online, Steve Lucas, CEO of Boomi. Check out the data activation platform. Check out the control tower. Very important stuff. Embrace the AI, folks. You've been listening to Inside Analysis.